Hello and welcome back to English Every Day. In this series, you will improve your English, discover true stories, and learn important lessons from the lives of amazing people. In the last episode, we'll learn about Helen Keller's early life. She was born as a healthy and happy child. She had a loving family and a bright future. But when Helen was only 19 months old, a serious illness changed her life forever. After that illness, Helen could no longer see. She could no longer hear. Her world became a place of silence and darkness. But this was only the beginning of her journey. Today, we continue the story of Helen Keller. Imagine waking up one morning and everything around you has changed. You cannot see the sunlight coming through the window. You cannot hear the voice of your mother calling your name. You cannot hear the sound of people laughing around you. You are surrounded by people who love you, but you cannot understand their words. This was the world of Helen Keller. She was just a small child trying to understand a world that suddenly became very confusing. Helen did not know what she could not hear. She did not know what she could not see. She only knew that something was different. She wanted to communicate, she wanted to be understood, but she had no language. She had no words. For most children, learning begins naturally. A baby hears people talking. A child watches others and learns by copying them. They learn simple words like mother, father, water, and food. They learn by listening and watching every day. But Helen did not have this chance. She could not hear the sounds of words. She could not see the faces of people speaking. The normal path of learning was closed for her. But Helen was not an ordinary child. Even though she could not see or hear, she had a strong desire to discover the world. She used her hands to explore everything around her. Her hands became her eyes. Her hands became her ears. She touched flowers to understand them. She touched trees to feel nature. She touched people's faces to recognize them. She learned the shape of objects. She learned the shape of objects through touch. Little by little, she created her own way of understanding life. Helen was very close to her mother. Kate Keller spent many hours with her daughter. She tried to understand Helen's needs. She tried to make her feel safe and loved. Helen knew her mother's touch. She knew when her mother was near. She could feel the kindness and love in her mother's hands. But love could not solve every problem. Helen needed more than love. She needed a way to communicate. She needed a language. She needed a language. Without language, many things inside her mind stayed hidden. She had thoughts, she had feelings, she had questions, but she could not share them with others. This was one of the hardest parts of her life. As Helen grew older, her frustration became stronger. Sometimes she became very angry. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she acted in ways that surprised her family. She would throw things. She would push people away. She would become upset when nobody understood what she wanted. Some people might think she was a difficult child, but they did not understand her situation. Helen was not angry because she was bad. She was angry because she was trapped. She was living inside a world that nobody else could enter. Imagine having a message in your heart, but having no way to send it. Imagine wanting to talk, but having no voice. This was Helen's daily struggle. Her family watched her with sadness. They loved her deeply. They wanted to help her. They wanted to give her a better future. But they did not know what to do. At that time, many people did not understand how to teach children who could not see or hear. There were very few resources. There were very few teachers with experience in this area. Helen's parents had many questions. Would she ever learn? Would she ever communicate? Would she ever have an independent life? They did not have the answer yet, but they know one thing. They could not give up on their daughter. Helen's family continued searching for answers. They wanted to find a way to reach their daughter. They wanted to open a door into her silent world. Every day, They watched Helen grow older. They saw her intelligence. They saw her curiosity. They saw that there was a bright mind inside her, but they also saw her struggles. They knew that Helen needed someone who could understand her, someone who could teach her, someone who could help her communicate with the world. Although Helen could not speak, she was always learning. She was learning through touch. She was learning through experience. She was learning through observation in her own special way. She remembered places and people. She understood routines. She knew when it was time to eat. She knew when her family members were near her. She had a strong memory. She also had a powerful imagination. Even in a world without sound and light, Helen's mind was active. She wanted to know more. She wanted to discover more. There was a desire inside her that could not be stopped. Sometimes Helen found small moments of happiness. She enjoyed being outside. She loved feeling the warmth of the sun. She liked touching plants and flowers. She enjoyed playing with animals. Nature became one of the ways she connected with the world. When she touched a flower, she could feel its softness. When she felt the wind, she knew something beautiful was around here. When she held the hand of someone she loved, she felt safe. These small experiences gave her hope. But as time passed, her family became more concerned. They knew that love was important. They knew that patience was important. But they also knew Helen needed education. Without education, it would be very difficult for her to build an independent life. Her parents began looking for help. They searched for information. They asked people questions. They wanted to know if there was anyone who could teach a child like Helen. They did not want Helen to live her entire life in isolation. They believed she had potential. They believed she could learn. Many people around them did not expect much from Helen. They looked only at her difficulties. They saw what she could not do. They did not see what she could become. But Helen's family saw something different. They saw a child with intelligence. They saw a child with determination. They saw a child who needed an opportunity. Sometimes a person's future changed because someone believed in them. For Helen, that belief came from her family. They refused to let her challenge decide her future. As Helen approached her 7th birthday, her need for help became even clearer. She was a smart child. She wanted to communicate more. She wanted to understand more. But she was still trapped behind a wall of silence. Her parents knew that the time had come. They needed to find someone who could guide Helen, someone who could teach her a new way of understanding the world. They did not know it yet, but soon a young woman would enter their lives. A woman who had faced her own difficulties. A woman who understood struggles. A woman who would become one of the most important people in Helen Keller's life. Her name was Anne Sullivan. But before we meet her, we must understand one more thing. Helen's story was not only about losing sight and hearing. It was about a child searching for a connection. A child waiting for someone to say, "I understand you." And that moment was coming. For many years, Helen lived in a world that was difficult for others to understand. People around her could see and hear. They could talk to each other easily. They could share their thoughts and feelings with words. But Helen had a different experience. She had a world inside her mind, but she did not have the tools to share it. This was the greatest challenge of her childhood. Not being able to see was difficult. Not being able to hear was difficult. But not being able to communicate was the hardest part. Helen's parents continued to support her. They gave her love. They gave her patience. They gave her hope. They knew that every child deserves a chance to learn. They did not want Helen to be remembered only because of her difficulties. They wanted people to see her abilities. They believed that somewhere there was a solution. Somewhere there was a person who could help Helen discover her potential. And during these years, Helen was slowly developing her own personality. She was strong-minded. She was curious. She did not easily accept limits. Even when life was difficult, she continued exploring. She wanted to touch everything. She wanted to understand everything. She wanted to be part of the world around her. This strong desire to learn would later become one of the greatest powers in her life. Sometimes the people around Helen wondered what her future would look like. Would she always depend on others? Would she always live in silence? Would she ever be able to communicate? These questions were difficult, but history would later show that they were asking the wrong questions. The real question was not, what can Helen not do? The real question was, what can Helen achieve if she receives the right help? Every great journey begins before the world knows the person's name. Before Helen Keller became a famous writer and speaker, she was just a little girl searching for a way to connect with others. Before millions of people heard her story, she was a child who felt alone. Before Helen Keller became a famous writer and speaker, she was just a little girl searching for a way to connect with others. Before millions of people heard her story, she was a child who felt alone. Before she inspired the world, she first needed someone to believe in her. And soon, a new chapter was about to begin. A young teacher would arrive. She would enter Helen's silent world. She would bring a new way of learning. She would show Helen that words could exist even without sound. Her name was Anne Sullivan, and their meeting would change both of their lives forever. Thank you for listening to English Every Day. This was the second chapter of Helen Keller's incredible life story, but the journey is not finished. The most important moments is still ahead. In the next episode, we will discover how Anne Sullivan entered Helen's life and started the journey that opened the door to a new world. The story continues. Join us in the next part. Keep learning, keep improving, and remember, a difficult beginning does not mean a difficult ending. Goodbye.